Yes, everyone, what is the story? Welcome back to another video here on Cluiche with me, Seamus Brady, your host. And in this video, I'm going to give my initial reaction to the 4 provincial football draws that are made in the Men's Football Championship for next season. Obviously, the off-season has just been crazy. Mickey Hart going to Derry, Jim McGuinness returning, Desi Farrell staying on as Dublin boss, Jack O'Connor staying on as Kerry boss, news left, right and centre. And now the provincial draws have been made. So immediately, everyone cannot wait to see who's going to play who, and we have found out today. So I'm going to give my immediate reaction to all 4 provinces, and yeah, get involved in the discussion, guys. Let me know what games you are looking forward to. Let me know which pairing you're looking forward to, and let me know off the back of this, which counties do you actually think will win the provincial championships. It's going to be so fascinating to see this. Obviously, Derry and Tyrone is one. The fact that they're on the same side of the draw, if Derry beat Donegal and if Tyrone see off Monaghan or Cavan, we all know that that will be a mouth-watering Ulster semi-final between those two teams. And let's start with Ulster. The Ulster Senior Football Championship draw for 2024 was made, and here it is. My first reaction to this, obviously you're looking immediately, Jim McGuinness back in with Donegal, Mickey Hart in there as Derry boss. Just craziness, left, right and centre. That is the Connacht one. That is the Munster one. This one is the Leinster one. And that one is the Ulster one. So let's take a look at the Ulster Football Championship. So the draw for the Ulster Football Championship 2024 was made. Here it is. The preliminary round, Monaghan versus Cavan. The quarterfinals, Down versus Antrim, Fermanagh versus Armagh, Derry versus Donegal, and Monaghan or Cavan versus Tyrone. So immediately there, you've got Monaghan, Cavan, Tyrone, Derry and Donegal on one side of the draw, Down, Antrim, Fermanagh and Armagh on the other side of the draw. So immediately off the back of that, if I were in the Armagh camp, particularly with Kieran McGeeney, I would be absolutely thrilled with how that draw has turned out. You're staying away from Derry, you're staying away from Donegal, staying away from Tyrone and staying away from Monaghan. Like, that is an absolutely perfect draw for Armagh there, in the sense of there's not one other team that is in Division 1 that is going to be in their side of the draw. So they absolutely must be thrilled with that. Then if you look at the other side, obviously Derry and Donegal is the major tie that sticks out immediately. It's kicking off with a banger. Monaghan versus Cavan is a real intense rivalry between those two teams. You think about their meeting in 2020 when Raymond Galligan hit over the winning point for Cavan. Like, they have a real back and forth. Down versus Antrim, you would expect Down to come through that as of the current moment. Obviously, Conor Laverty doing some good work at them. They made some great progress in the Tailteann Cup. They will be expected to get promotion from Division 3 this season, so they'll be confident they can get through that. And as I said, Armagh then should be very confident of making an Ulster final, because that side of the draw has turned out very favourable for them. Derry versus Donegal is a mouth-watering clash. Mickey Hart in with Derry, Jim McGuinness in with Donegal. It's going to be an absolute banger, that one. I cannot wait for that game. Monaghan or Cavan then against Tyrone. Like, I would back Monaghan to be able to put it up to Tyrone more, but I would also back Cavan to be more likely of putting Monaghan away than Tyrone away, which is a really weird double standard between them. But Monaghan Tyrone is always a banger. You think of last season, Ryan O'Toole with the last minute goal. You think of Conor McManus's point in 2018, Tyrone beating Monaghan then in the quarterfinal in 2013, Sean Kavanagh with that infamous tackle. Like, these two bring out the best in each other. So, like, immediately off the back of that draw, I'm thinking Derry Donegal is definitely the tie to look out for the quarterfinal stage. Monaghan Cavan is going to be a belter. Then you've got Tyrone potentially against Derry in an Ulster semi-final. Mickey Hart going up against Brian Dewar in the Tyrone dugout, and Mickey Hart is in the Derry one. It's just, there's so much to go off. If I was to look at that and say honestly what I expect to happen, I expect from this moment, speaking in October 2023, I'd expect Monaghan to beat Cavan, Down to play Armagh in one semi-final, and probably Derry to play Tyrone in the other semi-final. Now, who comes out of that? Who knows? I expect maybe a Derry or Tyrone versus Armagh Ulster final, with Monaghan obviously a huge threat to Tyrone. I mean, they beat them last season, so who says they can't beat them again? But it is one hell of a clash. I expect Armagh to be there against either Derry, Donegal, Monaghan or Tyrone. Sorry, Cavan, but that is just an absolute shark pool that you are in over on that side of the draw. But the Ulster draw is a cracker. Let me know what you make of it in the comments below. So moving on from Ulster, then we have, of course, the Munster Senior Football Championship draw for 2024. Now, obviously, off the back of this, you are immediately looking at Kerry as being the team to beat. They haven't lost Munster since Cork beat them in 2020, obviously, with that late Mark Keane goal. So let's take a look here at the Munster Football Championship draw. So we have the quarterfinals are Tipperary versus Waterford, Limerick versus Cork, and then the semi-finals are Clare versus either Tipperary or Waterford, and then Limerick versus either Limerick or Cork, versus Kerry. So, I mean, when you're looking at that, immediately you're thinking it's going to be Tipperary against Clare in one semi-final and Cork against Kerry in the other semi-final, which is a very interesting game. And when you think about it, when you think about how close Cork got to Kerry last season, I mean, it was the controversial penalty that made the difference for Kerry in that game in the Super 8s. Or, sorry, in the group stages of the championship. Not the Super 8s, they're long gone. But in the group stages of the championships, it was that controversial penalty that made the difference for Kerry. So the fact that they're playing Cork in the championship, guaranteed. I think Cork are the only team in Munster that are actually close. Well, I think they're the closest ones to beating Kerry anyway. I mean, the way Kerry put Clare away last season compared to how tough they found it against Cork says it for me. And the fact that Colin Collins is gone, it is difficult to know just where Clare will be at this season. They have some fabulous footballers, but Collins being gone is a massive blow. And yeah, so it's very, very difficult to know where they'll be at. Cork seem like they're on the up, beating Roscommon, making it to the quarterfinals, putting in a good enough display against Derry, although it wasn't the best game to look at. But they definitely made steps forward, and I feel like they might give it a shot. But overall, I'd expect it to be a Kerry versus Clare Munster final again, and I expect Kerry to win. I'm not speaking in October. A lot can change between now and then, but I do expect that nothing will change in Munster in the next season. And speaking of provinces that I don't think anything will change in 2024, you know which one is coming up next: the Leinster Senior Football Championship draw for 2024. So Dublin will win. And like, honest truth is, you're looking at it thinking, how are Dublin going to win? So obviously, commenting here from Gavin says, wish Cork and Kerry were seeded. Yes, I do wish that, like, Cork and Kerry opposite sides of the draw to set up a Munster final. I mean, that would be a bit of a throwback to the old days where Cork and Kerry played in the Munster final a lot. But I do still probably lean towards Kerry to take it, although Cork are making huge strides. No doubt about that. Watch the game in the Super 8s. That gives you all the proof you need that Cork are closing the gap to Kerry. Now, Leinster Senior Football draw for 2024. So let's take a look at this. Again, I've got it wrong. Leinster Senior Football Championship draw 2024. Here it is. So preliminary round: Westmeath versus Wicklow, Carlow versus Wexford, and Longford versus Meath. So this is obviously speaking in October 2023. I think Westmeath and Meath will definitely come through that. Carlow Wexford is a bit more difficult to call. I feel like Carlow have the odd good performance in them, but I probably would lean to Wexford just about on that one. Then in the quarterfinals, Kildare against either Westmeath or Wicklow, Louth against either Carlow or Wexford, Dublin against either Longford or Meath, and Offaly against Laois. And the one thing that is immediately disappointing when you're thinking about this is, in my view, Dublin won't get caught in Leinster for a very long time anyway. But in my view, the only way Dublin do not get caught in Leinster is if they play a Meath or a Kildare away from home. That's the only way I think that they won't get caught in Leinster, or it's that they will get caught in Leinster. And the fact is, once again, they've got a home tie pretty much, or a game in Croke Park against Longford and Meath, which they will win. And then they'll have another game in Croke Park, probably against Offaly or Laois, which they'll win that, and then they'll go into the Leinster final against probably Kildare, looking at that draw there. Kildare being on the other side, stick out as the strong favourites, in my opinion, if they get past Westmeath anyway. Obviously, Louth, without Mickey Hart this season, unsure what to make of whereabouts they will be. So, in my opinion, having looked at that draw, while I'm hugely excited about the other provincial championships, I'm hugely excited about Ulster. In my opinion, that draw tells me that the Leinster Championship in 2024 is going to be exactly the same as the last 13 Leinster Championships have been. As in, Dublin get a quarterfinal game in Croke Park and they smash someone to bits. Semi-final, relatively simple, and a final against the Kildare Mees, who won't really turn up, and Dublin will win. Like, that's pretty much how it's gone for the last few years. I hope I'm wrong, because I genuinely want somebody to challenge Dublin and Leinster. It's been 13 years. Last time Dublin lost in Leinster, I was 9 years old. I'm 22 now. A whole lifetime has gone past for me since Dublin lost in Leinster. So I hope that somebody can rise and challenge Dublin in the Leinster Championship this season. But looking at that draw, I expect it to be a Dublin versus Kildare Leinster final, and I expect Dublin to win. Now, final Provincial Championship to look at here, the Connacht Senior Football Championship draw for 2024. So let's take a look at it here. So New York versus Mayo is the quarterfinals, along with London versus Galway and Sligo versus Leitrim. And in the semi-finals, it will be New York or Mayo against Roscommon, and Sligo or Leitrim against London or Galway. So Galway on the opposite side of the draw to Mayo and Roscommon. So you can pretty much put them into the Connacht final, in my opinion. No disrespect to Sligo, Leitrim or London, but I do think that Galway are far too good for them at this particular moment in time. You look at the Connacht final last season between Galway and Sligo, and the difference between the two teams, I don't quite know how Sligo could have closed that gap in just a year. On the other side of the draw, you do expect New York to give Mayo a good rattle, especially after beating Leitrim last season. Their tails will be up, but Mayo should beat them. And then they go in against Roscommon in the semi-final. Now, that one is just a pure toss of a coin. Davy Burke and Kevin McStay obviously will have been in their second season in those counties. So, I mean, that in itself will be fascinating to see what they can do. Obviously, Liam McHale no longer in the backroom team there for Mayo. What impact will his loss have? But for me, again, it's one of Mayo or Roscommon to play Galway in the Connacht final. Not too much of a difference there either. So, look, overall, I do expect Galway to still come out on top. I feel like Mayo or Roscommon will absolutely flake hell out of one another, and then they'll be knackered going into that final where they play Galway, who I expect to turn whoever over in that Connacht football final, especially with the calendar being so tight. But the calendar just got a hell of a lot more interesting with some of those draws. This has been my immediate reaction to the Provincial Championships. I am absolutely buzzing that Derry are going to play Donegal in the quarterfinals. That's a cracker. Derry are also on the same side of the draw as Tyrone, which is just unbelievable. Like, Provincial Football Championship draws just made there. And you've got Derry going up against Donegal, Mickey Hart going up against Jim McGuinness, Tyrone on the same side of the draw as Derry. I mean, what a cracker that's going to be. We potentially have Mayo going up against Roscommon in the Connacht semi-final again. We've got Kerry potentially running into Cork in the Munster semi-final. And the gap has closed somewhat between those two teams. You look at their game in the All-Ireland group stages last season, Cork pushed them so close. And yeah, just some absolute crackers to look forward to. Ulster opens with a banger between Cavan and Monaghan. It's just going to be fascinating. And that draw has certainly heightened my anticipation for next year's championship. But that is my immediate reaction to it. Let me know what you make of it in the comments below. Tell me what games you're looking forward to. Which ones do you think are going to go the same as they've gone for the last few years? For me, the Leinster Championship will not change. And for me, Munster Championship and Connacht Championship, I expect Kerry and Galway to win it again next season, with Galway beating Roscommon or Mayo in the final after they've taken lumps out of each other in the Connacht semi-final. It's a questionable one. Do you think, that's another question, do you think that the team that plays against the other top three teams, do you think Mayo and Roscommon have an advantage by playing each other in a semi-final, or a disadvantage? That's an interesting one. Let me know in the comments below what you make out of that. But yeah, guys, until the next video here on Cluiche, take care of yourself and enjoy.